I'm trying to get people to get in touch with who they really are and share who they really are. And
Yeah.
doing all this creative work like improv, my podcast, voiceover, on-camera acting, and then I make a lot of very ridiculous comedy videos on social media. Um, it's me getting in touch with who I am so that when I'm telling people in coaching sessions to be who they really are, I'm walking the walk.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Book Leads Impactful Books for Life and Leadership. I'm your series host and leadership performance coach, John Jaramillo. This podcast series is about getting to the books that have impacted the lives of the people in my network. So these are great leads to get to those books and have conversation on the books that have made the most impact on them, their work, their business, their lives. All those worlds intersect. I want to know which one has really stood out the most or is up there on the list. Some people sometimes can't pick the top book. In any case, my guest today is Miriam Katz, and Miriam is a Los Angeles-based public speaking coach, podcaster, and performer. She studied comparative literature at Columbia University, worked at Artforum magazine for many, many years, followed by stints curating comedy shows and panels for Moma in New York and Silencio in Paris. She trained in improv at the Groundlings and UCB, and also studied acting, clown, and voiceover in many other theaters and schools. You may have heard her in video games and seen her in films, TV shows, and Chili's commercials. She's the host of the X Appeal podcast, for which she interviews every person she's ever been romantic with on any level. And the show was recently a hot topic on The View. That's right, Whoopi Goldberg knows her name. I saw that clip. That was interesting, Miriam. But anyway, thank you for being here.
I'm so happy to be here. This is great.
What did you think, before we jump into the questions, what did you think when you saw Whoopi mention your podcast?
It was totally insane because it's not anything I pitched or anyone connected to me pitched. It happened because there was an article in the New York Post, and then the very next morning they talked about it. So it was, somebody texted me, "Congratulations on The View." And I had no idea what they were talking about and didn't even, So it was a very fun, exciting surprise because it wasn't something that I had tried to make happen.
Yeah. And at that point, how many episodes did you have out and how long were you doing the podcast by the time that happened?
I think I had 5 episodes out. It was nothing. Yeah. I certainly knew about the New York Post article. They interviewed 3 of my exes. It was a really big deal. It was a feature, and that had been my focus, but that was such an added insane situation. And Whoopi kind of gave me the side eye. The clip was sort of making fun of it a little bit, or at least saying, would we do this? They hadn't listened to it. They were just saying, would you ever do this? But it was so fun. I mean, it's such a wild thing. It definitely, I know that it's kind of a sticky subject in a good way, meaning culturally sticky. It's easy to say what it is. I interview everyone I've ever been romantic with. You know what that means. And I think you can ask, everyone who hears that thinks, would I do that? And if I did that, what would that be? And that honestly is one of the most fun aspects of the podcast, is that any stranger I ever tell about it, they all immediately tell me some story about a crazy ex or whatever it is, or somebody they're pining for. So that's a super fun aspect of it, is that people get personal right away, which I love.
As soon as I heard that you were doing that or had been doing it, by the time I met you, I think you'd already been doing it. I started going through the Rolodex of people in my head. Like, what would this conversation be like? Did we leave off on good terms? Was it a good breakup? Was it a bad breakup? Good experience, bad experience? And the only thing that I could kind of compare to your podcast is just when you bump into that person years later.
I know.
And you're in different places. Obviously not on a microphone, obviously not publishing it, but just kind of what that feeling is of, this person knows me in a certain way that most people may not. And whenever I have bumped into exes, and it's been a while, but whenever I have, it's always been pretty cordial, funny, and like relaxed, because you can be real with that person. They may not have known you the best out of everyone, but obviously there was some kind of connection. So it was always interesting to come across those people, because obviously you were on a level at some point that you're not at with that many people in the world. So I can only imagine what that energy is like. And it's always going to be different between me and my exes, you and your exes, but that's got to be an amazing experiment.
Completely. And every single episode, I hear something that surprises me, something they were going through that I didn't know,
Yeah.
something that they remember that for me was no big deal, but for them has maybe even haunted them. Just, I also am very surprised at how much people care.
What do you mean?
I think we think that people don't care and that we're all obsessed with things, but no one else is. But everyone cares and everyone remembers things, and even a small romantic encounter, because I interview people that I hooked up with once, not just long-term partners.
Yeah.
And people remember all sorts of details. You could think that almost everybody could just throw something away, but I'm amazed at how much people are also vulnerable, feeling sensitive human beings, not just me.
Yeah. Such an interesting, I refer to it as experiment, but
I think that's a good word for it. Yeah.
Because you don't get that opportunity a lot, and you evolve so much from year to year. So who you're talking to is not the person that they were or that you were back at that connection.
Yes.
So maybe you were more inhibited. Maybe you were more restrictive with yourself. Maybe you didn't open up as much. So in a couple of years' time, you can evolve to somebody that just kind of says what's on their mind. So it's incredible. I love that idea.
Thank you.
All right, to start off, the main questions. Miriam, who are you today? I read the bio, great bio, entertaining. I've seen you in workshops that you've done. I love the energy you bring to the work that you do. If you can, go into that a little more. What do your days look like in the day-to-day at this point? So that we can understand who's going to be sharing this book with us.
Yes, I have a nice hybrid life of very creative projects, and then also I'm a public speaking coach. And those things are super intertwined because as a public speaking coach, I'm trying to get people to get in touch with who they really are and share who they really are. And doing all this creative work like improv, my podcast, voiceover, on-camera acting, and then I make a lot of very ridiculous comedy videos on social media. It's me getting in touch with who I am so that when I'm telling people in coaching sessions to be who they really are, I'm walking the walk. And I myself am doing things that are surpassing myself and a little bit scary. And that's a theme that'll continue throughout this conversation because that's what the book is really about. But yeah, I coach.
But even if it comes up again in this conversation, when you say scary, what do you mean by that? Scary to you or scary maybe to others because of how honest it is?
I think I'm talking about scary to me or scary to a person individually. I'm not super concerned about whether someone is scared of me, but I am concerned with when I am afraid and crossing the boundary of fear. And something that we'll get into the book, but something that I really like that Elizabeth Gilbert says is that she's more interested in curiosity than fear. And so thinking of it as curiosity.
Yes.
Yeah. And every time I did an improv show last night, I did not know what was going to happen. That is part of improv. And that's always intense. Yeah. And I think my life is filled with things like that, whether there's much less on-camera work going on now, but whether it's auditioning or doing improv or teaching, there's all sorts of ways all the time that I don't know what's going to happen. I'm doing a short version of a solo show in July, and so much of it is improvised. I don't know what's going to happen. And I think art and sharing yourself and speaking, there's so much fear in that. And I want to both work in that realm and encourage other people to work in that realm.
Oof. That's something that's come up a lot in these conversations in my own life. And I love that split between fear and how curiosity can kind of suppress it, not eliminate it. I think a certain amount of fear is good.
Totally.
But it's incredible when you get to that point in your life or career where aside from something health-wise or something dangerous, nothing scares you because you learn what your value is. You learn more who you are. You can take more risks. You can be curious. It's incredible what that curiosity opens up. I'm somebody that was very quiet, very shy, all of it. But then when I got to the point of being curious, it's like, fuck it. Let's see what this, I think you used the phrase, what this opens up.
Yes.
So now it's all about, okay, this conversation with Miriam, I have my standard questions. I know the work she does. Let's see what happens. It's not a standard interview back and forth. It's very conversational as I'm doing now, but it's like, let's see what happens. And if it doesn't go right, it's like, who cares? Like,
oh yeah, I want it to go not right. I want it to go not right. I'm serious. I want us to be like, what am I saying? Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Because it's just honest. It's open. I mean, I think I've always had a problem with something that was too scripted.
Oh,
But once you get to something where it's like, all right, let's see what happens. Fuck it.
Oh, it's so fun. It's so fun. And it feels more like the truth, which I'm also really interested in.
Yeah.
And I think with speaking, truth comes up a lot with wanting people, say in a panel, because I work with people, if they're pitching something or preparing for a panel or presenting at work. I'm working with someone now who's about to do his oral defense for his PhD. So all sorts of different speaking situations. And there always is this thing of the content should be true and also the way that you perform it should be true. So yes, maybe let's eliminate some of the ums and speak with some pitch variety and all these things. And then also, what is your way of speaking about this? How can you tap into how much you care about what you're talking about so that it becomes passionate and therefore engaging to us?
Yeah, I think just in hearing more about your work, I think that stuff is more important now than ever.
Yes.
Just because we're just in a society, we're living in an era that everything is so technologically heavily based.
Oh, yeah.
That I think we lose that human connection. So any opportunity we have to convey that humanity, that realness, that I'm human aspect of ourselves. I think anytime, I know for me, I can only speak for myself. Anytime I see a hint of that I know what I'm doing, I know that I've done that the person has done their due diligence, that they know their stuff, but that they can make it human.
Yeah.
That they can somehow convey in their words that somehow it comes across that I'm open, I'm fallible, things can go wrong, but I've done enough of my work. Let's see what can happen. And I want you to take that journey with me. So it's amazing when somebody can kind of convey that kind of idea. We're so different. It sounds different from person to person, but that humanity, I think tapping into your own story helps convey your humanity. And I think that's what we need more than ever before.
And it's so fun to see. I'm in this women's art group and we meet once a month to talk about our art journeys and give each other art dares and support each other if we have a little kernel of an idea, opening it up and supporting each other. And we were talking about the vulnerability in art making and how it's the thing that people most want to see. It's so hard to do, actually. We all talk about it theoretically, and then when you actually are doing it, it is very difficult. And again, this is so much of what this book is about. And then one of the women at some point started crying, and it was so beautiful. And it was, yes, of course, seeing somebody cry is so stunning. And it represented everything we've been talking about theoretically, that it is this stunning moment of just, okay, I'm going to surrender and be who I am. And you want it.
Absolutely. And to get even further to understanding who you are, Miriam, to understand the work you're doing and how you got here, what does your life look like? So I tend to like to start with somebody maybe around high school age when they're going into the workforce or they're going into college. What did that path to now look like? Even though you may not have known you were going to end up exactly here, what did that path start like? What did it look like?
I'll start even earlier. I'll start at 5.
Please.
At 5, I was really into acting and really into performing. And I have intense academic parents, immigrants, who really wanted me to focus on academics. And so that was kind of a struggle throughout. Yeah, even elementary school through high school of I wanted to lead this artistic life, and they really wanted me to focus on math and academics in general and getting straight A's in general. That was really their main interest. That was safety to them, is getting straight A's. And I really bought into that for a while and went into college as a math major and then got super interested in visual art. And yeah, there was this continuous toggling. And I started working at an art magazine right after college, Artforum, which is this fancy contemporary art magazine. And that was 2 years of working. I worked at that magazine for many years, but I worked there 2 years full time. And it was very hard. It was very intense to only focus on supporting artists and not myself having a creative outlet. I think I thought, well, I really like art, so I will be in support of art, and that'll be enough. I'll be next to it. And I still love supporting artists and love getting other people to be creative. It's a huge passion of mine. It's a big driving force of mine in friendships and in, professional clients. But it did start to really hurt that I wasn't also engaging with what we're talking about, vulnerability, saying what I feel, expressing myself in a way that doesn't always make sense. Sometimes you get an idea for an artwork and you don't know why, and it takes up so much time and it seems so ridiculous and it's not logical, and I need that. So I was being completely logical and being adjacent to the art, adjacent to the excitement, doing studio visits, organizing art shows. And then I started to watch a lot of stand-up comedy live. I was living in New York. And it got me very interested in comedy itself. And also, stand-up is so much about truth, little tiny truths. And I think engaging with truth so often made me have to admit that I was quite unhappy in just this branch of professional life. That I needed to somehow, and I didn't really know quite what it was. I knew I'd been an actress as a kid, but I was not engaged with my own creative life. And I started to do stand-up. I started to take improv classes. I got back into acting. And then now I really have both elements in my life. I'm very much in support of other people's voices and getting people to feel comfortable speaking and being themselves. And then also I have such a rich, fun, exciting, creative life. And I do really like having both. I think there's something really nice about having the stability of both the financial stability of having a regular job.
Logical job.
And not having to fully rely on art to pay rent. I think that's really, really great to have that. But I also think there's something stabilizing in not just thinking about yourself and in helping other people. So I think, that blend is so helpful for me. And again, those things are so tied together. Because if I wasn't making any art and I was just telling people, be honest, speak your truth, it would just be words. I think I understand how hard it is. And so I can come up with exercises to help people to make it happen.
Yeah. So for you, and I'll definitely dive into what you said, but I just don't want to lose sight. I'm curious of your college journey. You said you went in there with math. So did you finish in math, or when did you pivot? When did you pivot, and how did that conversation go with your parents?
Once I got into college, they didn't really understand what was happening. At some point, my dad looked at my transcript and he was like, wait a second, what classes did you take this semester? Sociology of sexuality? I don't know about that. I went from
immigrants from where, by the way?
Russia, Soviet Union.
Okay.
Yeah. I went from math to neuroscience to biopsychology, so already kind of getting artier. And then biopsych, I think then I just went straight to comparative literature. So
what the hell is biopsych?
Biopsych is very close to neuroscience. It's psychology of the brain. It's one step removed from neuroscience. And comparative literature also still felt like a hybrid. I wasn't being a writing major. I wasn't being a visual art major. It's the comparison of different languages and what languages bring to fiction and what language says about a culture. And it was still so academic, which made them comfortable, but it wasn't as if I was saying, I'm going to study dance. That wouldn't, I don't think they would have been
Hey, I
into that.
mean, Russia was big with dance. I mean, that's one of their.
Well, that's the funny thing is I went to Russia with my family and every single cobblestone said, a ballet dancer lived here. Pushkin once ate on this bench. I mean, everything is literature and dance. But but it's also their options were math, computer science, and physics. That was the professional paths.
And it's one of those things where, okay, if you make it in those fields, you are put up on pillars, you're written about, and this, but the pools to get there, the dancers to get there, the writers to get there. So, I mean, I can understand the pressure of stay academic. That'll be a little safer than the arts, but, you broke free.
Yes, I did. Yes. Oh, and you're asking about the conversation. I mean, it's such an ongoing conversation of them recognizing who I am. And I think if they had been raised in this country, they would have had different lives anyway. So in a sense, they are looking at who they could have been if they'd grown up here. And so that is, I mean, they have never said that. I'm making this up, but that might be exciting and unnerving.
I get that, though, because my parents are immigrants, too.
Oh.
So their pressure was always like, do good in school. So the conversation never was, I came to this country so that, you're not going to fuck up. So no, like it wasn't pressure, but it was always get good grades. So they never said, because we came and we sacrificed, you need to make it. It was never like that. It was get good grades. And by the end, it's like, okay, I'm doing this for both my parents as well. Like their sacrifice to get me here. But it is so many of my friends whose parents are immigrants, whose family immigrated here. A lot of it is, there was sacrifice to come here. There was a fight to get here, so you do have to be the doctor, the lawyer, the academic, whatever it may be. So I can appreciate that kind of pressure that you may have felt, or that message that they had for you, that they wanted for you, just because it's a very common immigrant story.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not at all bad. I think children of immigrants are not spoiled, usually, and have an understanding of lots of different kinds of people. And maybe, I mean, this isn't necessarily the case with my sisters, but I think in my case, it made me feel from the get, I am a little different from everyone. And I was fine with that.
Yeah.
Because my house looked different, and I had no issue with that.
Yeah, the people that I've spoken to here on the series whose parents were immigrants, they speak of like that immigrant DNA, where like some of these people left their countries not knowing where they were going to land, what they were coming to, what would the next week or next month bring, so that there's something a little of that in the DNA where the next generation is kind of like, I know I'm like that kind of. Where it's kind of like, okay, you want me to go to college to sit in an office, a clean office that's air conditioned in the summer, heated in the winter. That's pretty much a cakewalk, like a white collar job, as opposed to my parents that worked in a factory, this and that. So, I mean, there's something to be said about achieving something in your life as a kid of immigrants and just, I don't know, that fight for more, if you will.
Yeah.
Like I still find myself, even though I'm settled professionally, if you will, where the goals are all met, the traditional goals, the house and the suburbs, the family, vacations, yada, yada, yada. There's just something in me that wants to keep fighting, I don't know if it's that immigrant DNA or what it is.
But I've never thought about that aspect of it. I think about what it is to be raised in that household and certain expectations, but I don't really think I've thought that much about the fact that they wanted more. They wanted to surpass what was possible. It was also dangerous and very, very limited. So it was also out of desperation, but that ability to get up and leave and not speak any English and make a life. There's so much force in that. There's so much power in that.
Yeah.
And that the kids of those people are going to have some of that intensity.
Intensity, good. Yeah, if I think about like my Greek friends, my Italian friends, my Jewish friends, like whose parents were immigrants, it's like, I don't know, it's just there. It is that intensity.
Wow.
So Miriam, back jumping forward now. So you were working at the magazine, kind of profiling and working with creatives. You kind of were missing out on that. You were going to more comedy shows, then you started stepping into all these areas. So
Yeah.
from that period on, what did that look like to now?
I had a great time doing voiceover and on camera stuff. I did a lot of comedy stuff, and
How
yeah,
did you
that's
break
just
into those particular sets of work, like the voiceover or on camera?
on camera. I always liked, especially voiceover was a bit of an alternative to commercials. I Voiceover and commercials are kind of the more logical, practical rather than TV because that's so hard to do and film. And so they're slightly easier to do and they're a little more I don't know, it's like a little bit the safety,
Okay.
even though it's also quite hard. I like doing a lot of voices, and so voiceover made a lot of sense for me. And I really like the idea of being able to do a character that was quite different from me, or even an inanimate object or an animal. I thought there was something very psychedelic about voiceover that you're not limited to what you look like at all. And commercials are fun, and I did some commercials, but just that was my focus of the alongside acting job that was still an acting job. And
Where
during
where
the
do you think that came up for you, or where did you see that? Um, even though your parents wanted something more academic, less creative, if you will, where do you think this kind of creativity in your mind, everything you just explained about applying a voice to an inanimate object, for instance, the fun in doing that? Did you see that? Not that specifically, but that kind of creativity, that kind of looseness. Did you see that modeled anywhere, or is it just kind of, where do you think that came from for you?
I when I was 4 or 5, announced that I was an actress. I felt really connected to Cyndi Lauper as a kid. And I think that was a fun model of just somebody who was doing her own thing.
Yeah.
I don't even know how I came across her. I was so young. I it feels pretty innate. I don't think I saw somebody be an actor when I was that young and say I want to do that. I think
Yeah.
there's something that I was very much born with, which is why when I tried to smush it down in my early 20s, and when I was in my early 20s, I think I didn't know you could act like a kid. And then I found out you can forever.
And get paid for it.
Totally, totally, totally. And yeah, I think I just was it and then smushed it down and then returned to being it. I don't think
Okay.
it was that. And then anytime we would have family friends, kids who were slightly older than me, I would see them in plays and it blew my mind. Anytime I saw any kids performing, I really felt connected to it. And TV and movies and all that stuff. But even before I was culturally savvy at all, I was a performer and I was very comfortable, very hammy, made up songs, always getting up and performing, won all the talent shows. Yeah, I think it was something that preceded any training or knowledge. It was just a very deep, let me drop into this. And the different characters thing also feels like who I am. And it feels like who I am in terms of just talking to people. I think I can understand that people are different and appreciate those differences and be curious about them.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. So back to the voiceover work. So from there,
From there, during the pandemic, a friend of mine asked me, the very beginning, first week of lockdown, a friend asked me to teach her daughter acting over Zoom. And I started to teach her, and then I put up a post about it on Facebook, and then suddenly I had 12 students that I was teaching, which was so fun. And there was kids all over the country. And I was teaching them improv, acting. I was writing sketches with them and filming them. We were doing stand-up. We were doing and we were creating characters, any kind of comedic performance. And it was kids ages 6 to 13 when I was starting. And I have continued to teach some of those students. So some people I started when they were 8 and now they're 16.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now we're doing Shakespeare monologues. And I mean, it's very exciting to be the adult that you wish you had had for a kid. It's so amazing. And one of my students' fathers was giving a talk at a conference. This is a couple years into that. And he asked me to punch up his talk because he knew that I worked with comedy, and then also to help him with his performance. And it was really, really fun to work with him. So with the kids, I'm the adult that they don't have. And then with the adults, I'm reminding them of what it's like to be a kid and getting them to tap into being a kid. And so the two have a nice parallel. And I had done versions of public speaking coaching before as a curator. I would moderate panels and I would prepare people. I organized artist talks. I would prepare them. So I'd done that kind of work a bunch. And then I started really focusing on coaching adults because it's really fun. It's very meaningful work.
I can imagine just the kids helping them tap into what comes natural to them, but they just need to tap into it. And then the parents, the adults, rediscovering that childhood awe, that wonder, that creativity.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, we go through school and we're trained, taking in information, disseminating it, taking in information, going with the logical, you know what I mean? That we kind of let go of who we are when we have to meet a job description. There's like a little bit of our soul that fades away as we kind of go up that hierarchy. So to get to that point where you can find somebody that's going to help you redefine that, rediscover it, find it again, whatever it may be, punch it up, as you said, I think it's incredible. I'm thinking in real time, I'm thinking about my kids and really I wanted to get them into that path just to kind of play. Mm-hmm. They have like their regular play, but just, kind of like organized play or improv play, like just getting in that mindset of, okay, we don't know what's going to happen. I got my lines or I got this or that, but let's get into that mindset of creating and designing something, not something so strict and by the book as like, just school, but supplementing it with that creativity. Because I want them to get to that point where it becomes a part of who they are, because I see the value in it as an adult.
Yeah.
I don't need to tell them what they need to do, but I will tell them, listen, I want you to try these different things to see where you feel at home and where you can explore and feel comfortable in it. So I love the fact that you can work with both kids as well as the adults. It's amazing.
Oh, it's so healthy to be able to let go and not just say, this is my idea, it has to be this way. And improv is so much about, okay, I'm going to say a little thing, and then someone else is going to say a thing, and then we're going to build together.
Yeah.
That's a really beautiful thing in terms of teamwork. And then, when you first start working with kids, sometimes they'll even say, I'll say, oh, what do you want to write a scene about? And they'll say, I don't know. And then you keep asking them questions and eventually they do know. So it's getting them to feel more comfortable with they do have ideas. They think they don't because, like you said, at school, someone is always telling them what to do. But you can even start by giving them choices. Do you want to write about a funny person or a serious person, whatever, and then you pull it out of them. But to get them to have more trust in ideas and that ideas will come is super powerful in terms of them having a voice and being an agent in their lives. So it's not just, oh, I'm supposed to follow rules.
Yeah, yeah. And that plays back to that balance, because I want them to understand, yes, there are places where there are rules and you do have curriculum and you do have assignments and accountability, but to avoid burnout, to avoid, being strained less or more later in life, to lose yourself, let's start balancing that. I always try to ensure they have a right combination of those two worlds. So I appreciate you bringing that up. Miriam, I'm curious, where did the curation of the shows, the facilitation of the shows or panels, how did you get started in that? And if you could, what's the timeline? I know it's different areas that you've been working in, but you go to the comedy shows, you see, okay, this is something that I'm interested in. You start doing improv, but what is the kind of order of the different areas that you've practiced in, the work that you've done? What does that look like? Because I'm wondering what it is that drew you to these different points.
Yeah, I had worked at the magazine for a few years and was going to see a lot of comedy. And I had been writing about painting, and then I started writing about video, and then I started writing about performance art. So there was their own little trajectory.
Yeah.
And then I pitched to do an interview with a comedian for the magazine, which hadn't been done. And they trusted me at that point because I had written a bunch of stuff. I'd worked there for years. And so they let me do that. And then I'd worked alongside that magazine job, I'd worked at this experimental art center called The Kitchen. And a couple of curators at Moma knew that I'd worked there and asked me to curate a performance art event. And I then pitched to them that I would do a stand-up show. And I had to then write basically an essay about why stand-up was art in order for them to let me do it. It was just such a funny thing. These worlds are so separate. These creative worlds are distinct, which I understand. It's because they need their own ecosystem.
Of course.
But it is pretty funny that they're so separate.
Can you paraphrase the lesson from that essay?
Yeah, I mean, this is probably, I think this is 16 years ago, but I was talking about innovation and iteration, and that comedians are always trying to innovate because surprise is what makes you laugh. And so innovation is so built into it. And they are seeing if it works in real time. And so they're constantly adjusting, even nightly if they have a few shows. Yeah. And Art World is very obsessed with innovation and the trajectory of the work. I think that was probably the crux of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then you had mentioned during the pandemic, you were coaching a child virtually, then a parent caught wind, then you helped him with his speaking, with his talk. So then that's when the business side of that launched?
Yeah. Yeah. And part of it was just telling everybody that I knew that I was doing that. And then some of it was people that I knew or recommendations of somebody who ran a business. And then I started to post more on LinkedIn, and then I definitely get clients from that. And I started to make videos because I already make all these comedy videos all the time. And so I'm very used to being on camera. So I know LinkedIn is very much not video. Nobody cares about video on LinkedIn, but I still really love making videos for LinkedIn with little mini public speaking tips.
Yeah.
And it's fun to, after I teach somebody, obviously keeping everything anonymous, but getting a little idea from that and then filming a video in response to that. But yeah, the business has been in earnest for a few years. And the past year's really ramped up. And sometimes I work for companies, and then sometimes I'll also do group improv classes or communications classes. But the one-on-one is my heart. I love it. Yeah. I love it so much because everybody has their own fears and their own discomfort. And so, yes, there's the sheen on top. There's the playing with tonality and switching up the speed of how you speak and not saying like so much, but that there's a deeper work to be done, and it's often something that happened to you within your family situation or in middle school or something like that.
Very good point. Very good point.
And that stuff is really sensitive, and it's really nice to gain trust with the client and get into that stuff and understand where things are, and to do confidence mantras and meditation and talk to them about personal daily habits, working out, breathing well. And all of that is so individualized and sensitive because it's about how people live their lives. So that in a group setting you can do, I think, on a certain level, encouraging people to meditate or something like that. But the deep down talking about it, but also being prescriptive and also practicing, I think it's nice to do that individually.
At a high level, some of the stuff is cookie cutter. It can work in a group. But like you said, that customization, that working one-on-one is incredible. And it is incredible how much Yeah, you can provide the tools, like you said, the cadence, the tonality, the pitch, all that stuff. But it's incredible how much of that beast really is psychological.
Yeah.
What informs, what empowers the way they speak if they want to speak based on their experiences. So you don't think about that too much. You may just think, oh, that person's shy or they don't feel confident in their work. But it's like, no, they're not necessarily shy. No, they're not necessarily not confident in their work. There's more to it behind
There's so
that.
much going on. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the other reason for one-on-one is everyone has their own defense mechanisms. And speaking of experimentation, you have to experiment to figure out what can solve that. I had somebody who rolled his eyes a lot, and it turns out he was just very uncomfortable with vulnerability. And so when I forced him to talk about something vulnerable, then he totally stopped doing it. And so we then infused even his work talks with more vulnerability. And then some people ramble, and that can be for different reasons, but there can be a real insecurity at the heart of rambling. And so then it's about building up confidence. So because rambling is really over-explaining. It's no one is ever going to understand me, so I have to just keep on talking. And it takes a lot of confidence just to say, it's like a mic drop. This is what I think. Done.
Yeah, just leave it there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's incredible how uncomfortable we are with silence. Like even this platform, Riverside, like there's an option where it removes pauses. And I get it. I mean, if you want to post online, you got to get people's attention. So you got to kind of quick cut between people who are talking to kind of get to the point or whatever. But for me, it's like, that's a natural conversation. You're not rushing through it. You're not looking away from it. It's just, silence happens. I feel a lot more comfortable in it now because I realize it's a natural part of just the way we think, the way we interact. I'm not racing to get to that next thought or racing to get to that next answer. So we all have our quirks. It's incredible how different we are.
Pauses are unreal. They let people take in what you said. And there is vulnerability in it, but that is definitely something that I make people practice, even at a very exaggerated level. Just have them give an impromptu talk about cheese and then really pause between elements. It is stunning. And it makes people uncomfortable. And that's why you got to practice it a bunch. But pauses rock. Silence rocks.
Before we jump into the next question, this is a question itself, I gather, but is there anything else that you wanted to share between where you are in your timeline to now? Before we jump to...
I feel like we did such a good job. Yeah.
Very nice job.
You asked me a lot of professional questions that I have not been asked before. People maybe asked me specifically about public speaking and maybe a little bit about teaching kids, but the whole trajectory of the time from the art world into this. I guess the one thing I'll say is I feel much happier with the hybrid life of both the creative existence and the coaching. It feels very right. It feels very spiritually right. There's something about the art world that felt too brainy, too rational. And so it's nice when you can keep on moving creatively and professionally to feel more like yourself.
Yeah. How do you consider where you are in your evolution? You know what I mean? Because I don't want to make it sound like, oh, well, and I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
She hasn't nailed it. There's more she has to do. But I'm always curious because as a creative, I know we're always evolving. Always evolving. Even if we're good at our craft, there's something that's always kind of evolving. So what do you say to that? How do you think about that? Your own, even as a specialist in your field, you're kicking ass in all these different areas and coaching areas. What do you say about your own evolution?
There is way more vulnerability to step into. There is way more sharing. And I shared things on my podcast that are personal, but I don't even know that that's so exciting. I think there's more artistic sharing that I will do. I don't quite know what that is. But I've seen so much shift and I've seen so much softening in myself in the past 20 years that I am sure that that's going to continue to happen. I didn't know that I was going to do the podcast 7 years ago, and I think there's going to be an even deeper level. So I think it's not that I'm saying, oh, I want to make so much more as a coach, or I want to get this big TV show. I think it's more of a tonal thing of there will be more of a vulnerable sharing. There's going to be another artistic level. Yeah.
So where in the timeline that you've broke, and I keep going back to kind of organize your timeline because I'm hopping all over the place. But for you, in that timeline of all the different projects, all the different jobs that you had, the different roles you had, where did the idea for that come up? How did that come to be?
I was on a solo road trip from Los Angeles to Santa Fe, New Mexico for a friend's wedding. So that's a 2-day each way. But the 2 days on the way, I came up with the idea for the podcast. And I came up with it because I was feeling unhappy and I was feeling the weight of past relationships. And there was things that felt like there was more to figure out, because when you're having a breakup, you don't say everything, of course.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that I was thinking of one individual person or even two or three. It really felt like just the heaviness of my past romantic life, like something had not been cycled through. Like I hadn't fully processed it, so it was just sitting there in a big ball of heavy past loves.
So take me through kind of like the short version of your thinking of, oh, this should be a podcast.
Well, it was
not that I should reach out to these guys and kind of based on where I am now and girls and talk about whatever I feel comfortable with now. There's a big difference between reaching out to them individually, right? You're a different person now. You're in a different space, and putting out there publicly that kind of reconnection. So
definitely.
What was the thinking for making it so public?
I don't know. The idea just came as that. It didn't come as, oh, I'm going to go and reach out to these people. It came as, I'm going to do it as a podcast. Now I understand that oddly making it recorded makes you speak more honestly. Because if everybody's going to hear it, then you can't just lie, because people know who you are.
How does that keep you from lying? I'm not saying that you should lie at all.
No, I know. But I think if I was having dinner with someone and they said something uncomfortable, I might just let it go because this is just dinner. We're chilling. I'm just going to
There's a bit more accountability somehow.
I think there's more accountability. I also think for me, there's something, the same way that I was always an actress, there's maybe something about being recorded that, not in a self-conscious way, but there is a tiny bit of heightening that for me personally allows the truth to come forward. It's not more false. It's not more performative. It's actually maybe more real, just a little bit louder, a little more intense. And I also realize now, again, the idea just came. It's not that all these things were mapped out at the time, but I also have found that people listening have felt very connected to these conversations because they maybe have had a similar situation. And so they feel a little bit of that weight lifted also, and maybe can have some guess about what somebody that maybe they don't feel comfortable talking to could have been going through that made whatever happened make a little bit more sense. I've also heard people say that it gives them a lot of hope for dating, which is so nice.
Interesting.
Yeah. And yes, so the recording aspect of it, a little bit, some of the reasons came later. But I think the heaviness was there. And so the very simple feeling was, maybe also the podcast was just, and then it'll happen, because otherwise I'm not gonna fight to see these people, because it can be hard to talk to people.
Yeah.
So I think it was also
Yeah.
the structure of a project makes it actually take place. But
Very good point.
the main thrust was heavy and I want more light, which 100% has happened. That has totally worked. I feel
Amazing.
way lighter. I feel so many aha moments. I feel so much more like I've let go and finished. It's not that it reopened. It
That's
actually,
funny.
yeah.
So no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Just that I feel like, okay, now the relationship's done. 25 years
Yeah.
later or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, like I don't have that sense that things were left undone in certain relationships, but I can see how it might tie off nicely if you kind of share conversations like that. Interesting. Very
And it's
interesting.
nice to say things to people before they die. Because I feel like a lot of people, it's actually always breaks my heart when somebody dies and then people say all these incredibly nice things to them. Oh my
It drives
God.
me nuts.
It's
That
so
drives me
frustrating.
nuts. It drives me nuts.
Can we just name it like today's Bob Dylan Day? Today, everybody say the nice things about Bob Dylan instead of in 2 years when he
We
dies.
need that. We need that. I see it so often.
Yeah. It's brutal.
I see it so
Yeah.
Like I was dating a girl and for whatever reason she felt lonely this particular day by certain people. She felt left out and then she died tragically in an accident.
Oh my God.
And those same people who like turned their back on, all of a sudden everything was kind of,
wow.
You're amazing. And I get it.
Wow.
It wakes you up to how you really care about somebody. But aside from that, even if there is no drama, that's why people are like, oh, John, you're opinionated. I'm like, no, if I have something to say, I say it because I've seen it too often where if you hold your tongue, you'll regret it later because the person will be out of your life. Maybe they die, whatever the case may be. I just don't hold on to anything because I see the value. And there is a little selfishness in there where if I say it, I can breathe a little easier.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
But I mean, we're all interconnected. So the way when you tell somebody something, then you feel something, that's fine. But it does feel incredible. It's obviously nice to hear people say nice things. But for me, it's really important for me to tell people what they meant to me. And you don't know what they meant to you in the moment when you're with them. Years later, you're still thinking about the impact they had on you. And you know it more because you've existed.
Yeah. Let's not save it for the obituary. Let's not save it for the eulogy. Let's do it now. Miriam, so does it make sense from your childhood that this is what you're doing? Not that you knew you were going to end up here, but how do you put words connecting little Miriam, childhood Miriam to the work you're doing now? What comes through for you?
Oh my God. I love this question. I'll say that I have returned to who I was as a child. When I was 26, a friend of mine had a party with 13 women. She wanted sort of a witchy party, and she wrote questions and put them in a hat, and then we picked a question and answered it. And I love women. And my question was, what did you want to be as a kid, and are you doing it? And I started crying as soon as I got the question because I was not doing what I wanted. I was not doing what I wanted to do as a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was completely clear. Not everybody has that, but I was an actor, completely clear. And I was at that point in the art world writing and curating. And that was a nice wake up. And then the next few years, there was some hippie spiritual stuff, experimentation, and then also all the comedy experimentation, and then a return to acting and performing. And so now I so feel like I am who I was as a kid. I have a lot more patience. That's the one thing that I've cultivated.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because that was something I really had to consciously cultivate.
Yeah.
But I have an idea, and then I mean, this is something I really love about the internet. I have an idea, and then I film it, and then I edit it, and then I put it up, and then I have this absolutely silly comedy video. I don't know why I had that idea. I don't know. I had an idea yesterday that I want to be Picasso in a video. Okay, I don't know why. Something's going to happen. I'm going to improvise. I'm going to dress up like Picasso and be Picasso and see what that is. And then it's so fun to have an idea and run with it. So yeah, I totally feel like, And maybe that's even when you ask the question of what is going to come next. I think there might be even deeper levels of being a 6-year-old again.
I mean, there's something to what you just said about I got an idea and I put it out there.
Yeah.
I think when you're a creative, I mean, being creative, whatever your platform is, whatever your medium is, whether it's writing, podcasting, painting, sculpting, music, conversation, whatever it is, there's something about getting that energy. Like if that energy's in you, that idea, whatever it may be, letting it go.
Yes.
You know, it comes to letting it go because we've talked about what happens in every way. You holding back who you were, letting people know what they mean to you and holding that back. We've talked so much about letting go versus holding things back.
Wow. Yeah.
As a
expression.
creative, it's like, you just have to get rid of those. It's like breathing. Like it's when you don't express it, it's like you're holding your breath, whatever it may be.
And also then the next thing can come. You can have another idea, another feeling. Yeah, it's definitely true because you want that in and out.
So what do you consider your superpower?
Oh, I think connection. I think I am deeply a people person. I love
I'd say so.
People. I love people. I think that is, and so therefore I like to connect and I like to see what people are about and make people feel like themselves. Yeah.
Miriam, what does leadership mean to you? How would you define it? What does good leadership look like?
I lead with inspiration rather than people feeling like they are obligated to do something. I like making people feel excited to do that thing.
And I meant to ask you before, obviously, when I asked the question, you'll know why, but and you mentioned inspiration. So what is it that inspires you? Because there really is, you love people, you like, drawing the best out of people. But I guess put some words to what it is that inspires you. What is it that keeps you motivated and just kind of designing that next idea in your head? What inspires you?
Well, currently with the podcast, I'm very interested in love. And I'm going to do a show later in July about, I'm going to have some kind of a love connection with every single person in the audience, but there's going to be a time limit to it. So I have to just very, very quickly have some kind of a love exchange with everyone in the audience, which is very related to the podcast. So I think connection is the thing that inspires me. Also, it's so funny to say it this way, but I think ideas inspire me. Inspiration itself inspires me. I think I get so excited when an idea comes. So I have created a life for myself where that is a primary element to my life. So I know that I work very hard because there's podcast is an enormous amount of work, and then creating a business is a huge amount of work, and then you actually are doing the things.
Yeah.
I also know that I need to meditate, exercise, see friends, take walks, dance, sing, do improv. There's all of these elements that I know are essential for my creative life, and I then do them. And that's the nice thing about being older, is that you learn those things. And I also know that drinking is not good for me. There's just things that I've learned over the years that help a lot. And it's not even that I'm strict with them. It's just, I have that information now. And I also will feel it in my body every once in a while. I'll say, oh God, I need to go to that mountain. I need to go to that ocean. So it's staying in that intuition so that those ideas come through. And like we said, attending to those ideas. I'm going to film that Picasso video because I don't know what that was. And it's not really about, and then it's going to hit. It's just then another idea will come.
Yeah, that's the best part, I guess, about being a creative, being a creator of any kind is you're not, there are instances, if you're selling that service, whatever it may be, or selling it as a service or as a product, okay, you want to make sure you appeal enough. But you find that sweet spot between how I need to appeal to people to make a living, if that's the case, and what it is that's going to satisfy me.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
When you can get to the point where you're creating something that if you shared with no one else, I know we talk about sharing and podcasting and posting, but if you create something, if you write a song, if you have a podcast, even if no one sees this podcast, my experience of creating it with you, designing it with you, it's like, it's a high. So
Yes.
anything I create, writing, anything like that, it's interesting designing something, creating something, writing, podcasting, whatever it may be. When you're done, you're like, damn, like I made this, I created this out of nothing. It's so fulfilling to see that on the page or on the screen, whatever it may be. So it's that power of self-fulfillment, that the creativity, creating in itself, even before anybody else sees it, what that does for you.
And this is very much doing a lot of foreshadowing of the book, but this is a big, which is good. No, it's perfect. Yeah. But it's a big aspect is that it's not just me. I made this thing. It's that you collaborated. The idea did come through you. And so there's this partnership with the ether, which is super fun. So that I also find super inspiring, that it's not just, I thought very hard. I sat down and wrote down a bunch of pros and cons. It's like, whoa, this thing hit me. I'm just going to say yes. And not taking that too seriously. I take my life as an artist super seriously, meaning I take care of myself so that I can be an artist.
Yes.
And also that's another thing about kids and comedic performance and improv, is getting them to not take things too seriously.
Yeah. I mean, you've mentioned a lot about ideas. You're right. We did foreshadow the book a lot, which we'll introduce in a minute. But yeah, you did mention the ideas coming to you. I think you just mentioned spirituality, but you had mentioned it very early on, maybe in the first couple of minutes. Can you speak to that a little bit? How do you see spirituality? What does that mean to you? How does it play into your creativity?
I mean, it is my creativity. It always has been. This is funny. My senior year, I wrote my thesis about the artist as a spiritual guide. So I was already doing that. It was a character in Proust in the second volume of In Search of Lost Time. There's a painter called Elstier, and I compared him to Rothko.
Okay.
I've been since I was even a teenager, I was interested in this idea of that spirituality in art. How can I talk about it? There is the energy and the world outside of you, and you can have a relationship to it. So it's a relationship to the invisible. Whether that is, you call that a spirit guide or God or a dead person.
Casper.
Yes, Casper mostly.
Whatever.
Then they're just the things. I love the feeling of, I can't explain this. I can't even see this. And it's not that I have a hard belief. I have a soft belief. But that soft belief is enough to guide me. And so not just to be grounded in, I am Miriam, I was born on this date, I have taxes to pay, but in something that is less logical and more wondrous.
Love it.
And there's so many things that can't be explained. And I think that's also why I'm so interested in love, because I'm attracted to lots of people. I find lots of people cool, but there were certain people that I needed to be more connected to. I was so drawn to them. That's not just physical attraction. That's, who are you? Show me you. Let me move towards you. And that feels very special. So I think there's a lot of spirituality in love. I actually think love is one of the only places where spirituality is acceptable. It's nebulous. No one understands it, and that's fine. But in lots of other areas, people want you to be more logical. I think it's
structured, embodied. Like there has to be rhyme and reason. Yes.
Please explain to me. Give me 10 reasons why you're doing such and such. And intuition is so cool and has always guided me really, really well. And it's not that I have some hardened thesis about it. It's a very fun, exciting, whirling thing that I tap into on a daily basis that is the best part of my life, I'd say.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Why don't you, at this point, let's jump into the book. Why don't you introduce the book that we're going to be talking about?
My pitch for everyone to read this book is, do you want to feel inspired? It is such an inspiring book. And I have read a lot of books about art making. I've read The War of Art. I've read The Artist's Way.
Same.
I've read Bird by Bird, which is about writing, and Lamott's great. All great.
Okay.
War of Art is fun. War of Art is, you dumb idiot, make your stupid art, you dummy.
Yeah.
But it's funny,
Yeah.
you know, like sometimes you need that kind of aggression. It's, you know, those artist retreats in New Mexico, or those retreats where you'll heal and then you'll make your art. No, you're going to heal by making your art. Do it now. Don't wait. And a lot of swear words. And then Artist's Way is very soft and sweet, and it's very supportive, and it's exercises, and Bird by Bird is all specifically about writing. All cool. The right big magic. I mean, some people are audio only, but we're showing our beautiful covers. Great cover. It is the lightest of those books. There's a very chill vibe to the book, which I really like. I think about Joan Didion, and obviously Joan Didion is such a great writer. And also, she writes in a bit of an intimidating way. I think Joan Didion a little bit creates a fortress that's a little bit, I can write. I don't know if you can ever write. I don't know that you could ever write like me. And I love her, and that's fine. But I really like artists who are very inviting for you to also make art. And there's a visual artist named Ava Hesse. It's not that she says this explicitly. It's just there's something about the softness about the way that she makes things that makes me feel, oh, I can make things too. And I think Elizabeth Gilbert writes in a way that is very inviting.
Yes.
It's very down to earth and direct and casual and light. Such a beautiful writer.
Yeah.
And also there's something in it that is very inviting. You can also write. You can also make art. And I think that's a really fun aspect to it. Also, she talks about, okay, so the whole book is about art making and about this spiritual aspect, that there's ideas outside of you. And it started as a TED Talk where she talked about how in Greek days, it wasn't that you were a genius. It's that you had a genius. There was a spirit that you had that got you to make stuff. And then in the Renaissance, they changed it to, oh, Michelangelo is a genius, and how much pressure that puts on artists. And that for Elizabeth Gilbert, she much prefers this idea of she has a genius. She gets visited by a genius. She's sitting there daily ready to do the work, and the genius does not visit her every single day. But sometimes it does, and she's there ready to take in that idea. And she also talks about this idea of some people feel like they're martyrs in their art, and that they suffer for it, and that it's difficult, and that they're giving up their lives. And she really likes the idea of a trickster instead. And that's the real vibe of the book of, okay, yes, devote your whole life to art, and also relax. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
Have fun. It's super fun to get an idea. Rock it. So I really love the vibe. And for me, I really believe basically everything she says in the book.
Yeah. Yeah, just to give people a quick breakdown, there's 6 parts to the book. So part 1 is courage, part 2 is enchantment, part 3 is permission, part 4 is persistence, part 5 is trust, and part 6 is divinity.
Even those that's like a poem. I mean, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. I read some of the books that you've spoken about, and this is the first one that really sunk in, really resonated because of the simple writing, simple, effective, soft writing that you outlined, that you mentioned before. But it is so down to earth. It's not pretentious. It's not entitled. It talks about the hard work, the frustration. I love the way she beautifully pulled back the curtain to say, it's not always, the final product that you see, it doesn't come to somebody so quickly or instantly, that there's a process, and there's, there can be that inner fight. I would say for anybody that specifically wants to go into writing, it's a must read just based on the thought process, the mindset, not the creativity necessarily, what you're trying to write, but just the process behind sitting down, crafting the idea, getting up, walking away, the persistence, all of that.
I mean, for me, I think it's for really any kind of, creative being. And it feels like she wants you to make work. I mean, she says that. She wants you to make work. And actually, more importantly, the idea wants to be made, and it chose you.
Yeah,
and
that was the interesting part when she talked about the book, the other famous book that she's famous for, where she said, what was it?
Eat, Pray, Love.
Yeah. But wasn't there another book where she said she was toying with an idea and then another,
and then somebody else got it.
And then somebody else, like it was like you mentioned the ether, it was floating around in the ether and she just kind of sat on it. They didn't pay attention to it. Not Eat, Pray, Love, but another book.
Oh, a different book that she didn't end up writing. Yeah.
Yeah.
She had worked for a while on a book, and then life made it so that she had to leave the country because her husband had a visa issue, or her not yet husband. And so she stopped working on the book for a couple years. And then she went back. She had all these notes. She'd done all this work on it, and it was gone. She just didn't, she tried very hard, but she could feel that the idea was no longer with her. She no longer had that genius. And she then met, maybe it was Anne Patchett. Maybe I shouldn't say who I think it was because I can't quite remember who it was. It was another author, and that they met and exchanged a kiss, not like a romantic kiss, but they exchanged a kiss because they both like really respected each other and they were excited to meet. And that author wrote that book. It truly wrote the book that Elizabeth Gilbert, her version of it. But basically the idea is that the idea had been transferred from one to the other.
Yeah, yeah. And you had mentioned the ether before, and as I was reading that part of the book, it really looked like an idea kind of floating above you, trying to call your attention, and you're not paying any mind to it, or you're brushing it away, and then it just floats off to the next person. But yeah, it's incredible. Just prolific writers, it really makes you think about what they go through to get to what they do to their craft. Miriam, for you, I meant to ask you, any writing, any books, in your future? Have you written anything?
I have written a lot. I wrote all the journalism stuff, and then I more recently wrote about comedy for the LA Times. I wrote a few pieces. I do think I will write something. It might be related to love and might be related to the podcast. I'm not totally sure. I'm somebody who I will throw myself into something once I'm doing it. And so I don't do it from ego. And it's not quite the moment. It will be the moment. And when it is, then that's the thing I will obsess with. I probably will do it when I'm no longer doing the podcast also.
Yeah.
Just because I know how I am. I just focus once I'm obsessed. But I don't focus if I'm not obsessed. But yes, there definitely will be a book. I love books.
Yeah, that is funny. Just the creative aspect where you get to a point where you understand your focus, you understand your passion, where you're not going to half-ass it and be like, maybe I should start a book on. It's like, no, like you're itching to get something out. It grabs a hold of you. So it's interesting how in tune you become with yourself when you get to that creative understanding about what your process is and what you want. So when you mention, I'll know it, it'll hit me. Yeah. I completely get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I did want to also say, we're talking about creating a life for art. Elizabeth Gilbert really walks the walk with that. She recently shaved her head.
I saw that.
Yeah, and she was and I heard her talking about it. She was in a room with a bunch of people her same age, and the women all had like very expensive. Where was that interview? Maybe she talked about it.
I know I heard it. I know, people always tell the same stories across podcasts. Yeah. I know I happened to catch it. I was on a flight somewhere, and I was looking for a podcast to download, and I came across her listed under the Tim Ferriss podcast.
That's where I heard it too.
Okay.
That's where I heard it too.
I immediately, between him and how inquisitive he is about the person's craft that he's interviewing, and just her from her creative side, I wanted to listen to it. So that was an interesting piece of the conversation where she talks like, and I'm paraphrasing, but kind of like she didn't want to be, was it that she didn't want to be defined by a certain kind of...
I think it was weighed down by, she was talking about she was in a room and there was a bunch of women and a bunch of men around the same age.
Yeah.
The women all had very expensive highlights that take a lot of time, that take a lot of upkeep, and all the men had shaved their heads. And she just it's sort of like a monk, like a Buddhist female monk will shave her head. It feels like that. And now she doesn't have to wash it. She doesn't have to... I mean, it really is a big thing.
I get it.
Curling and dyeing and dealing with gray or whatever it is. You know, there's so much that women deal with in terms of hair, and hair is so like, there's so much to deal with. And she just exited that, not because she just wanted to have more time. It's really for her work so that she can just focus that energy all on the work. And I just love that, again, walking the walk, that just like full embrace of her creative life. It's just easier. Why wouldn't she do it? And she looks amazing. Why wouldn't she do that? I mean, we should all do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are some not examples, but your general thoughts on what you kind of cull from your life that may take energy that you don't want to expend on the wrong things? Because I mean, that's what she's speaking to in that example. So are you conscious of that in the day in, day out of what you don't want to, intentionally culling and kind of cutting?
Totally.
Or is it just something where you're so in tune with that you don't have to do it proactively because you naturally, if it doesn't draw your energy in, you kind of just let it go?
I think there's some element of that, but also I don't hang out with people who are mean to me.
Yeah.
That helps a lot.
Yeah.
And you can be a family member. I don't care. I don't. Yeah, that's it.
There's just too many people in this world.
Well, and there's so many nice people.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
There's so many people that love me and support me and take care of me, and I take care of them. And I want there to be, everyone I hang out with, I want there to be a real back and forth love and a real respect. So that's very helpful. And that's different from my early 20s where I hung out with all sorts of people and all sorts of exciting people. I think I'm less interested in dramatic people. And people can be incredible, and I still love them, but there needs to be, respect. So I think because there's so much energy that comes through with people, I am conscious of who I spend time with. And I do think some of it's intuitive. I think sometimes I'll get an invitation to something, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Or, I definitely want to do so it's not just I love parties, but there's just certain events, like maybe at a bar, that I'm like, no. House party, that always inspires me. If something involves dancing, I'm like, okay, yes. So some of it is just the clarity of that. But aware of energy and when I'm exhausted. I do focus a lot of my time on work, public speaking, coaching, marketing and prepping classes and teaching, and then podcast and then creative work. And so those just take up a lot of my time. And seeing friends are also super important, but I tend to try to make that more one-on-one hang so that it's a concentrated burst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Miriam, for you, if you can remember when you read this book, what changed in you? Obviously, you've given so much insight into your creative process, how it's evolved, when you received it as a child, lost it, gained it back. But is there anything, and there doesn't need to be an answer, but is there anything that stands out after you read this book about how you looked at things, what might have changed?
I read this book, I believe, in 2017, which is when I was really making this switch into mostly acting at that time. And that's how I was mostly earning income, and it was such a huge part of my life. And that was when I'd worked at the magazine freelance up until around then. So that's when I stopped working at the magazine, because I was in New York. So I was going back and forth between Los Angeles and New York. I'll also say a part of that story is moving to Los Angeles in 2014. I find it to be easier to be a creative in Los Angeles, for sure. The sun is helpful. It's a lot easier to exist than in New York City. It's just, I really love LA. And it's softer. But I think it was a great time for me to feel good about the decision to focus on creative living. It just was like a parent. It was another parent giving me another perspective on art. And yeah, it made me feel, I think, that it was a good thing to focus on this life. I already knew it in my body, but it's nice to have somebody who lives the life tell you that. And not someone who's saying, give up everything, jump into the river, take this wild leap. She's very practical. She's very Midwest. She's not spoiled. She says, keep working and also make this the most important thing in your life. And it was the most important thing in my life since I was a kid. So it felt like she helped me. And there was a moment where I did The Artist's Way, and that was very helpful. I think probably 2004 or something. There was another little moment, creative burst. But I think this book made me feel good about leading a creative life for the rest of my life. I took acting. I did like a 2-year acting conservatory where I moved to LA, and Doris Roberts was at the same school. She won an Emmy for Everybody Loves Raymond.
Yep.
So she'd won several Emmys, and she still went to acting class every single Saturday and did scene studies. And still was learning about acting because she loved acting so much. And I feel so connected to that. There really is no, and now I've figured it out. I am old enough.
I've made it.
No, it's not about that. It's about continuously learning and trying and, like you said, experimenting.
What was I going to ask? There was something in what you said. But you moved everywhere. You moved even geographically. You moved. Oh, I was going to ask, can you say a little more just the difference between the two books, Big Magic and The Artist's Way? I guess we've spoken about Big Magic and the softness to it, and there is accountability, but it's not as harsh or however you want to put it. How does that stand out as different from The Artist's Way? If you could just give a little more information about that book. I have it somewhere, but I'm curious about.
Artist's Way is super helpful. Artist's Way is a workbook. So it is a big, I don't even say kind of burden. I mean, it's cool. It's great. It's very helpful, but it is a program.
Yeah.
You write morning pages every single day. You take yourself on artist dates. You don't use technology for full days. You can't even read anything. There's all sorts of things. It is helpful. Morning pages definitely help. It's just writing continuously, stream of consciousness. It was extremely helpful for me at the time. I think it doesn't have as much of a sense of humor as Big Magic, and it just feels like I don't know, maybe a little heavy and a little. I mean, it's been a long time, but it is work. I think it's work, and I think it's super helpful. I actually think everybody should read all those books. Yeah. War of Art, Artist's Way. For me, this one is the most inspiring and grounded and practical and fun. And I mean, I feel like this could be church. I feel like Big Magic could be something that every Sunday you read passages from and get inspired for the week.
So Miriam, in wrapping up, what are you up to these days? Is there anything that you want to discuss, bring up, talk about that I maybe didn't bring up, forgot to, whatever it may be? Whatever you want to share, the floor is yours.
Okay, this was beautiful, and we went in all sorts of areas I didn't expect, so I had a really good time. I feel like we did touch great things, so I feel very good about what was said. I will say it would be very cool if people were curious about my podcast. I do share a lot. I would start with episode 1. Episode 1 is a good intro. It makes sense. And I do make all these ridiculous comedy videos on every social media platform. So that would be cool if people wanted to watch some of those. And the public speaking coaching can be group or individual. And it's really for, I mean, if it could be for a wedding toast, it could be for a startup pitch, it can be for really, really anything that you want to get across in public. But we have a really good time.
Yeah, I'll all the links to everything you just shared, I'll include in here. So, and again, Miriam shared Big Magic, Creative Living Beyond Fear by Elizabeth Gilbert. The interesting thing is that I covered this with another guest in episode 73 with Kimberly Pita. And people always say, well, why would you have two people cover the same book? But for me, it's everybody has their own voice, their own tonality, their own experience that they bring to expressing what that book is all about. So both you came at it from your own different, unique perspective. So I appreciate you sharing the book and about your journey, especially as a creative. My appreciation for creatives of every form has really evolved, picked up, and it's grown deeper. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Miriam.
Wow, this is great. Thank you.
And if there's anything I might have missed, there's so much to cover, so little time, something you're curious about, something I should have asked, please let me know, and I'll reach out to Miriam, see what kind of information and guidance she can provide. In the meantime, thank you for watching, listening, and subscribing, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.